Looks like we got just about everybody signed in, so we'll go ahead and get this thing kicked off. My name's Justin Weatherby. I'm a solution engineer with Build Ops. Today we're going to be continuing our Summer of Service Agreements webinar series. Last we chatted about selling those service agreements, and this time we're going to talk about managing your service agreements, staying ahead of that planned maintenance, and making sure we are increasing the revenue for our business. So now that these service agreements have been sold, we really need to operationalize these service agreements to make them streamlined as possible, so that it doesn't become a nightmare to manage them. When I'm speaking with contractors across the country, we really get sort of, one or two answers to the question, do y'all, have any or manage service agreements? Either it's yes, we've got a bunch of them, or no, they're such a pain in the butt, we don't even bother selling them. And so it really seems like a lot of folks might be missing out on it. And, I'm kind of curious, today we want to keep this as interactive as possible. So we've got the question and answer section down at the bottom of your Zoom controls. So if you can hop in there, ask any questions throughout this webinar. It is live, so I'll do my best to answer those. Any ones we don't get to, we'll follow up with after the webinar. I might have mentioned this before, but this webinar is also going to be recorded. So if you have to step out and take a phone call, no worries. We'll send that recording out after we're finished. And keep your keyboard and mouse handy, because we want to be as interactive as we can. Unfortunately, there's so many people in the room. I can't turn on your microphones. That would that would devolve pretty quickly. But where we can get some of your feedback is through our poll questions, and also through the Q&A feature. So I'm going to throw a poll question up there. Just curious where y'all coming out of today. Any of these answers, we'll share them with the group just so everybody gets an idea. And if you can answer these quickly, I can, close them up and go ahead and move on. So looks like we got couple more people need to get in and get this thing answered. I'll give you all another about 10 seconds in here. All right, that's looking pretty good. We'll go ahead and end this poll and share the results. So it looks like we've got a large contingency out of the Northeast, as well as the Pacific. Our folks from Canada didn't look like they showed up today, but that's all right. I want to go ahead and hop into the content today, and we're really going to be talking about how to make a difference in these service agreements and how to manage them effectively. Number one thing that I hear from folks that gets me a little bit nervous when they're talking about how they're selling their service agreements is there's no sort of standard format that they're selling these service agreements in. Every customer is getting sort of a different list of services. Now, obviously, every site is going to have a different types of equipment, different number of pieces of equipment out there that we're going to be servicing. But what we'd like to do is try to keep the sort of packages that we're selling as standardized as possible. Not saying that every customer is going to get the same packages, but our offering of packages is going to be templatized. Meaning, hey, on this particular agreement, you guys are, you all need the summer and the winter service, or maybe it's like an annual and a quarterly. Maybe it's a major and a minor, but the whole idea is to have that standard list of templates that you all are selecting from. That way it's easier to manage. It's easier for the technicians because there's some uniformity there. And it's also easier for your sales folks as well that are going out and selling these service agreements. So a big part of effectively managing these service agreements is going to be keeping templates in place as much as possible. With those templates basically are checklists of what items need to be knocked off during these different types of services. So again, having a tool that'll help you, build out those checklists and then, provide those to the technicians out in the field where they're actually performing the services, I think is going to be really important. We've got a great tool for that here on the Build Ops side of things with our different equipment checklist. These are totally customizable, so y'all could set up like an annual maintenance, let's say that's got some list of tasks that need to be performed. You also might set up like a quarterly maintenance template in there as well. Now, it's totally up to you how you go about setting these templates up. You could have a spring and a fall, a summer and a winter, a major and a minor, a quarterly and annual, however y'all need to produce that, what's nice is you basically have these list of templates that you can then drag and drop onto a particular service agreement for a particular site or a particular customer. Kind of going hand in hand with those standardized checklists. If y'all don't have those checklists today, we can point you to a number of different manufacturers' websites that have some recommended service intervals if y'all are looking to sort of create those from scratch. I'm kind of curious in the chat, if you wouldn't mind, or in the Q&A section, if you wouldn't mind throwing in, how you all developed your existing service agreement checklists, and we'll go ahead and share those answers with the team in there. Now, a part of that reoccurring work, a lot of folks are leaning heavily on forms and being able to use different forms for different types of services, preventative maintenances that they're providing. Now, with that said, these forms are a great tool because you can then send them to the customer once you're finished with them in a maintenance report. And making sure that whatever tool that y'all are using today has that ability, I think, is super helpful. And I'm kind of curious. I'd like to know what are you all using today? Is this something that is done in a binder, right? I've been to a number of shops that have got 3-ring binders stacked up on shelves, and that's they pull the January binder down for that month's service. A lot of folks are using Excel spreadsheets, right? That's kind of the big green monster that folks are always leaning towards. Or if you all do have like a specific software in place, use the Q&A section or the chat section down at the bottom of the Zoom controls, and let me know what y'all are using today. There's a few different products out there, but most of the time I see folks are really using those Excel spreadsheets. Tanner's using Excel and Vista. Brad's using Builder Trend. Service Autopilot's one I haven't heard of before, but Everett's using those. So pretty cool stuff there. I'll go ahead and end this poll and share the results. Obviously, here at BuildOps, we offer an all-in-one solution. So not just your service agreements, but your quoted work, your time and material service work, your large project work. We're able to handle all that sort of on our side of the house. But yep, no surprise there. Excel spreadsheets, number one. And then some folks are using some different service agreements in there as well. Tracy looks like, she's creating work orders manually, and we'll talk about that, being able to automate that work order process. But, we'll hop back into the product, take a look here under the directory where we've got those equipment checklist. Y'all can have different types of equipment that's customizable, as many different pieces of equipment as you might service, and each one of those can have its own checklist or multiple checklists therein. We also talked a little bit about forms. Forms are going to be a big part of any successful service management workflow. And within BuildOps, we have a full form generating engine that allows you to click and drag and drop different fields onto your form. You can have drop downs, you can have date fields, number fields, things like that. Totally up to you. We can auto populate like the asset in there as well. So you could pick and choose which asset you're working on. And we'll see on the mobile app that this is optimized to be fit on the phone. But here back in the office, we're going to get a nice 8.5 by 11 for these forms. And when it comes to forms, once we have them built back in the office, we can then assign them to those service agreements. We can use the templates tool for that. Hey, include this form, for this given piece of equipment. If y'all need to capture signatures, you're able to do that on those forms as well. Pretty powerful on the form side. And then also, that's going to come into play here on the mobile app. So when you guys have a list of all the maintenances that they need to perform for that day or for that week, for that month, they click on that and come down into the report section down here. They'll see those forms. They'll either be called out where they can go ahead and those are a requirement that they fill them out, or they can select them. And as you can see here, we take those 8.5 by 11 forms and we shrink them down to optimize to be fit on the phone. BuildOps offers a mobile app for your Android and Apple devices, whether those are phones or tablets, as well as offline functionality. So you can perform these, you can complete these tasks, fill out these forms, whether or not you have an internet connection. It'll just store that locally and then bring that back up, once you've got service in there. Nicholas mentioned before that he kind of leans on the manufacturers to get these forms, to get these checklists. Those are great places to gather that information. Leaning on the manufacturer's website, they'll always have a section in there for the preventative maintenance that needs to be done on those different items. Another part of the service agreement and making, taking this contract and operationalizing it is making sure that you negotiate for additional work. A lot of times when we're out there on site performing these preventative maintenances, the technician will come across some work, additional work that needs to be covered or that needs to be completed that's not covered under that agreement. So being able to negotiate sort of the T&M sort of labor rates and material markup rates for that additional work is something that I find really valuable. And so as we're operationalizing these service agreements here in BuildOps, we'll be able to add the rate tables for the different agreements that we're working on. So I'll pop into a draft agreement here, and we mentioned those templates. You're able to choose which templates need to apply to this service agreement and drag them in on the service agreement. Once they're here, you can still edit them as needed, but you can then also come in here and add add your rate card. So what are your labor rates for any additional work? Maybe we've got a regular rate and an overtime rate, etc. And then we can also build our markup templates with like for our material and sort of like a range base. So 0 to 10, we're marking that up X%. Let's say 100 to 500, we're marking that up another percent. So that way, any pull through work, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well, we'll be able to fall back on these rate cards right here with the agreement, so that we don't have those conversations. Hey, what did we bill them last time, right? I've been in so many offices where, service managers yelling across the office to, the accounts receivable. Hey, what did we invoice them last time for this type of work? Because a lot of systems, that information is hard to find. In BuildOps, we're putting it right here, front and center. Again, if you all have any questions on this, feel free to drop it in the chat here. Now, Bryce is kind of doing my homework for me. Bryce is asking about a way to, be able to capture those recommendations. I wonder if Bryce is a BuildOps employee, right? That could have been better timed, Bryce, because what I want to do is pop back into that mobile app and show you all, we've selected this this maintenance agreement that we're working on. We've got some high level information for like the address of the site. We can click on that and it'll pop open Apple Maps and Google Maps to navigate there. We've got our property rep information. So if I'm on site and I need to call that property rep, that's just, at a click of a button. Also, if there's any sort of access instructions, we'll be able to see those, like if there's a door code or, don't park in the alley, something like that, as well as any notes here from the office. So we're gonna check in with the front desk. And rolling down this page a little bit, we're able to create what we call recommended tasks. So we can come in here and create a recommendation. In that recommendation, we're going to be able to tie to a specific piece of equipment out on the site. So, okay, it's going to be AHU number 2. What's the recommendation? We need to change the motor. We can put in some additional notes here as well. We were talking a little bit about forms. We were talking a little bit about what we call recommended tasks. So with our folks out in the field who are utilizing the mobile app, they can go ahead and create those recommendations out in the field. And actually back in the office, those are going to flow into their own dashboard where we can come in and keep an eye on those recommendations and make sure that we're pushing those through the system. Now, with that said, it's a very useful tool because so much of your service agreement is going to be the value of the service agreement isn't so much the maintenance that you're performing, but all of the additional work because you're the folks on site. You're able to be more proactive, right? If the amp draws seem out of whack, or just by listening to it, you can hear that the bearings are going bad in the blower motor, etc. We can then capture that work, quote that work, and get that off to the customer for approval. So managing that pull through work is going to be something real important. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Let's go ahead and pop back over into those slides. We talked about the rate cards, and once we now have this work order, or excuse me, this service agreement in the system, we're going to be able to auto-generate those maintenance work orders. As we saw before when we're walking through it, each of these agreements will have different tasks that need to be performed on their own cadence. So, in the case of this particular agreement, we're doing a minor service that's quarterly and a major service that's annual. And, each of those, maintenances will have its own list of tasks that need to be performed. And because we know when they need to be performed in advance, we will auto-generate those maintenance work orders so that you guys can keep track on which ones are overdue, which ones haven't been scheduled yet, which ones have been scheduled but haven't been completed. And what's really nice is for the service agreements coming up, let's say next month, you can go ahead and pull the parts list that's going to be needed. So you can make that purchase with the supply house, get in there and make sure those materials are either waiting for the technicians at the vendor. Maybe I'll have them sent to the shop and bundle those up and waiting in the warehouse for the technicians. But in either event, we're able to auto-generate those maintenance work orders as well as pull the parts list for the upcoming maintenances as well. Too often this is done manually where there's copy and pasting out of Excel. Some folks are utilizing like a Google or Microsoft Calendar for these things. Some folks are putting them onto paper, printing them off and handing them to the technicians, or emailing these to them, and being able to automate the creation of those work orders is a big time saver. Now, for some of your larger service agreements, you may have multiple techs out on site on a single day, or multiple techs out there across multiple days. The nice thing is about those tasks lists that we're generating here on the mobile app, a technician will be able to see what work was completed by the previous technicians. So I can see that on AHU3, a previous technician's changed the belts, but I still need to do the pre-filter change, let's say. So when they're looking through the list of assets here, you can search up here at the top. So, if you've got, a particular model number that you're looking for, something like that, you can use that search bar at the top. If you've got dozens and dozens of pieces of equipment there, that search is something that really comes in handy. Nicholas is asking about integration with accounting packages. There's a number of different accounting packages that we integrate with, and we can chat Nicholas kind of one-on-one with the different functionality with the different accounting packages. We can chat about Sage 100 if we need to. We talked about reporting on pull-through work. Now, anytime there's additional work, whether that's on a T&M basis or on a quoted basis, we want to be able to report on that. And we saw the first step in that process on, I don't actually know how much y'all saw that because that was right when the computer decided to restart itself. But the folks out in the field can capture those that recommended work, and then as that work's getting quoted or performed, we can tie that back to the specific service agreement. Now, by doing so, let's say at the end of the year, we can pull a report. I mean, you can pull this report at any point, but if we want to see the true value, the true revenue that this service agreement generated, it's not just about the budgeted hours for the maintenance itself, and how well y'all did, your actual hours versus your budgeted hours to perform the maintenance, but how much pull through work did we get from that? I hear from a lot of customers that, they'll sell these service agreements with pretty thin margins because they know the true value is that additional work that'll come off of those agreements. So we're able to analyze that data, and make sure that we're selling that additional work, because a lot of times your technicians out in the field are really your best salespeople. And I don't mean that they're going out there and maybe quoting the price of this repair, but at least being able to come in and um, being able to record that work needs to be completed, because they're your eyes and ears out there on the job site. Now, with every agreement, there is kind of two types. There's what we would call an evergreen agreement, which essentially auto renews. And until the customer tells you to stop coming out, you're going to keep coming out for that quarterly or annual or minor or major service maintenance. And those ones are easy enough to manage, but other times the service agreements will have a end date, and we need to call the customer, get them to put pen to paper on an agreement for, let's say, the next 3 years. So we're able to track those starting and ending dates of the agreements. We can let when they are going to expire. If they are those agreement types um, that do expire, we can pull reporting off of that and let you all know ahead of time, let's say 90 days in advance, which agreements are expiring and need to be followed up on. Now, BuildOps also has a tool in there to build in increases year over year. So a lot of folks, at very least, are maybe charging an inflationary sort of increase just to, keep up with inflation. Depending on how much pull through work you might just leave their agreement as is, because you're getting a lot of value from there. Being able to track those renewal dates, see which ones have expired, is going to be super helpful for keeping these agreements humming as we start moving forward. Now, with any tool that you all are utilizing, um, there's an old saying is you can't manage what you can't measure. So BuildOps allows for detailed reporting across the entire platform, but today we're talking specifically about service agreements. Now, BuildOps has a built-in report generating tool, and that report generating tool's basically bolted directly on top of the SQL database. Now, what I'm showing you here isn't necessarily the metrics that you all would be tracking, but more the functionality of the tool itself, where you're able to produce line charts, bar charts, tables, graphs, gauges, different types of reporting when it comes to efficiency metrics and close rates, etc. And you're able to populate those into a dashboard of your choosing. And those dashboards can be very handy for centralizing that information. If you need to, you can pull this reporting like with as of date. So, as of June 1st, like where did we stand? Again, the presentation of this is going to be very flexible. where you all can not only take the data out of the system and decide how you want it visualized, but even going as far as adding some custom calculations into our database. So if for whatever reason we're not making a calculation for something that y'all are looking for, a lot like Excel, right? And I know this particular example isn't going to make a lot of sense, but you could take this column, let's say add it to this column, divide it by this other column, multiply the whole thing, I don't know, by 2.5, and get your own reporting metrics out of the system. So very, very very, very powerful tool. And we can touch base a little bit and maybe set up a time to go over this one-on-one. But Ann wanted a little bit more detail on what's available with the checklist that we talked about early on, as well as the form generation, et cetera. So very powerful tools here at your disposal to really help automate um, the workflow here on the service agreements. Now, again, we're bringing it all together for parts and procurement, for scheduling, for reporting. I want to hop back into the product and talk a little bit about the dispatching of these service agreements, these maintenance work orders. They can either be dispatched here from the maintenance dashboard. I could go ahead and track down any of the overdue ones, create those visits and get those scheduled off for my folks out in the field. But I can also do this from the dispatch board as well. Now, here on the dispatch board, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a day view. So I've got the hours of the day across the top. I also have a week view as well. So you could have the days of the week across the top. And down the left-hand side here is where my technicians are listed. Now I can sort and filter this technician list by department. So if you all have a specific department that handles your maintenances, you can filter it down that way. We also have something less formal than a department, but equally as powerful, called a crew. And a crew is totally customizable, where you all can come in here and select your technicians based on their skill set. And selecting different skill sets will filter that technician list down. And here at the bottom is where we'll find our unassigned work. So I could grab some of that unassigned work and just click and drag it up to the technician to get it assigned to them. Now, your maintenances can be filtered either by priority, by location, by status, etc. And then basically click and drag functionality here up onto up on here to the dispatch board. So a lot of functionality here in the software. Every customer, every contractor, I should say, has their own way of managing agreements. So I'm really curious, of the folks that we've talked, that are here on the call today. I'm curious if you'd all like to learn a little bit more about how we can operationalize these service agreements here in the BuildOps platform. We can set up some time to go over with your particular needs one-on-one, and really walk through your process, walk through your current systems that you're using, and see if we can't improve the efficiency here on these agreements. It's something that if you're looking to possibly make an exit, sell, because the owners are reaching retirement, or you're looking for other ventures. The folks that are in the market sort of to purchase and take ownership of these service companies really look at these service agreements and the reoccurring revenue therein to help value the business. So the more service agreements you have, the more reoccurring revenue that's out there, really helps for the resale of the company. It also helps keep you all busy during the slower times of the year. I know we're in the getting into the middle of summer, and I don't know how many of y'all are from Texas, but heat's hot out, the heat's rising out there. as it will, throughout the country. And so, when you get into the slower times, having these agreements handy to fill in that work, I think is really valuable. I'll throw our contact information up here on the screen. If you all got any questions or want to reach out to us, take note of the information that you see here. Give us a buzz, shoot us an email. We'd be happy to, chat with you, about what your needs are and see if, we can help you all with the solution that we have for us today.